Alrighty then, it is Tpol here, doing something quite different. Uh, I had a subscriber request for a COD tier list. Over 33%, I think, of my regular viewers actually requested this video. So, Dave, this is for you. Hopefully, it lives up to expectations. I'm going to go through basically my plan for this is just to talk about all of the games in order, in turn. I'm not going to set a kind of time limit. I'm just going to talk about each one as much as I feel appropriate and just give my thoughts, opinions, pros and cons. Not going to be too much of a strict format, but I'm just going to go through and this will take as long as it takes, I guess. So we'll start out with the trash. And I should caveat this is trash slash never played. And I just assume if I didn't play it, it was probably for good reason. Ghosts is the first game. Now, I actually did play Ghosts once. I waited in line for 3 hours to play. We got one round in, which was pretty forgettable. And my memory, aside of just waiting in anticipation that whole time, questioning maybe we should try other games. Is this the best use of being at this event? Uh, it was just lots of places to camp. You died super fast. It just didn't seem very fun to me. It didn't compel me to buy it or play it. I don't know too many people other than Mark of J who've really enjoyed it. So for wasting my time, for not being very good, and for just being a game I didn't really play, I'm going to stick it in the trash. When it comes to Infinite Warfare, World War II, and Cold War, which is obviously the current game, I haven't touched any of these. I hear Infinite Warfare, arguably the worst received COD of the last decade, which is fucking saying something. World War II, I believe, was very broken for the first half of its life cycle, and then they made some quite significant changes. And it was much better received in the second half. That might be a game I turn to at some point and just give a whirl. It's been quite fun, and we'll cover Black Ops 3 down the line. But it's been quite fun going back to a game and almost having like a new COD and just getting to play around with it, explore it, level up, that sort of thing. So maybe World War II is one that I could try that with. Cold War, again, it seems to be unusually well received by the community for a game at this point in its life cycle. Obviously, typically everyone hates the current game, and then, excuse me, I'm going to do this all in one take. So, anyway, it is a global pandemic, so if I'm coughing, I think I'm allowed to cough. Yeah, it seems to be unusually well received for a current game. Again, I've barely seen any of it. What I've seen, it looks very Modern Warfare like to me, so it doesn't fill me with like a lot of desire to play. I hear skill-based matchmaking is out of control. So yeah, probably not a game I'm going to pick up anytime soon. So yeah, I mean that's just the trash. That I wanted to kind of get through that probably a bit quicker than I actually did. But we'll move on to Playable. So the first game I've got here is World at War. This is a game I probably played the least out of all of the games that we'll be talking about here on out. But I do remember it vaguely. I think the maps, from what I can recall, were good. I enjoyed War as a game mode. I thought Zombies was a good addition, even if it was very unforgiving, particularly compared to Zombies from Black Ops and Black Ops 2. Um, the guns I felt were all a little samey. You had the MP40 as well, which I remember was just god tier and kind of dicked on everything. So I think the balance probably could have been better. But overall, it was just, I think, a good kind of precursor, I suppose, to Black Ops. Quite a forgettable game, if I'm honest. Like I said, I didn't play it as much, but I would say it belongs in the playable list. It's not as bad as any of the games that I've mentioned before, and I just don't think it's as good as the games that are in the tiers above it. If I move on to Advanced Warfare, which is my next game in the playable list, I'll start with the positives. there was a certain fun factor about this game. There was a certain chaos and kind of, you were never bored. You were never trying to find people. There was a very fast pace of play. I thought some of the game modes, like uplink was, I think it was a new one for that. That was like the one that Cantle really got into, where you were kind of playing almost like capture the flag but with a ball, and there were certain good things about it. I thought the weapons for the most part were well balanced, even if they might have all felt a little samey. You had a few OP guns like the bow, um, but the main thing I think that really hurt this game was just the advanced movement. It was just insane. Like, it's seemingly limitless. You can move however you want at any time. Created a really high skill gap because of the difference. And again, I don't want to keep referring back to Black Ops 3, but comparing that advanced movement and the one from Advanced Warfare, it really is shocking how much more freedom you're allowed in this game, and it really messes up the flow of every game. People are able just to get around far too quickly. You might even read a spawn, but you'll never anticipate all the different places and how far from the spawn they can get in such a short time. So, the maps and the game just flowed poor. The gunfights were just insane because, sometimes you're talking about like 3, 4 stories of verticality. Um, and, just the way people were able to move, and it just didn't really feel like COD, didn't really make sense. And I also thought capturing objectives on that game were very challenging, because again, people are able just to get around, and it was definitely one where you can clear out A, try and start capping it, and people can spawn and get back to you before you finished. And yeah, I just didn't really like that game. We did play for a couple of months, and I think in the end, the best I was doing was like 60 and 20, and there didn't really feel like there was any way to avoid dying less than 20 times per game. It was just, well, can I get some kills along the way? And that doesn't really suit kind of what I look to get out of COD. So I put it in playable. You could argue maybe this should be a trash game, um, but I actually did play it, and it's not like I had no fun. So I think it's probably right where it is. And then the last game in the playable tier is Modern Warfare, which is obviously the one that came out last year. Was it last year? No, fuck, we're 2021 now. End of 2019. It was this one that was going to be this whole kind of genre bending, back to basics kind of, realism, fest. And whilst the graphics were great, I thought that the campaign mode was actually good, probably a bit short and maybe not quite as fulfilling, and just generally as what's the word? It wasn't quite as full an experience as I think they made it out. I mean, they made me feel like I was actually going to be in fucking Afghanistan, and feeling like I had bullets raining down on me and shit. But it was all right. It was, I did enjoy it. I like the co-op modes too, even if they were a little hard sometimes. Like, I remember a couple, like, it just felt like, how are we ever going to complete this? And maybe you just need better teamwork, more skill than what we had at our disposal. I don't know, but I enjoyed them. They were a nice change of play. Um, the Warzone game mode seems to be really popular. I must say I had quit and given up on this game before that came out, but a lot of people seem to like it. And it seems to be generally like well done from the people that kind of enjoy those battle royale game types. What I didn't like about this game, and ultimately why I quit, was I would say it's hard to sort of boil it down to one thing. The maps were awful, and they were just really big, full of 2 stories, full of head glitching spots. And whether or not it was like the kind of, your character was very slow and heavy, time to raise your gun up after sprinting, your ability to mantle, use equipment, everything was just slow. And I get that was part of the realism they were looking for, but it was a bit too much for me. And I think if you combine just how slow you are and everything you're trying to do is with the way the maps are, with how fucking quickly you die in that game, it just kind of promotes this much slower, campier. I mean, they'll say more strategic, but as far as I'm concerned, just campy way of playing. Um, and the few times I was able to get any kind of score streaks, everybody just hid inside, and there's plenty of places to hide. So there just wasn't a lot of fulfillment from this game. I don't think I really had many games. I mean, I never had anything I felt was worth posting. Um, but even the games where I felt like I did well, I didn't feel rewarded by it. It just was like, oh, thank God that's over. And that is just generally my feeling about Modern Warfare. I went back to Black Ops 4 and never really thought about picking it up since. So I put it in playable. If you've got maybe more patience than me, and maybe you're a Battlefield player who's not enjoying the new Battlefield, or that's just how you like to play, maybe it's a game for you. For me, I just thought it was a bit slow and shit, really. So that's the playable. And now we move into some games I actually like and maybe can muster some enthusiasm for. So COD 4. Now, this may be the most controversial placing on this whole list. COD 4, according to some people, is like the pinnacle. It was all downhill from COD 4, which I think is a bit of a pessimistic approach to think that every single subsequent game has got worse. And actually, doing this list, it's fucking insane how many COD games they've managed to churn out. And, if you think 50, 60 quid a pop, it definitely starts to add up. And that's not even talking about the microtransactions and stimulus packs and all that shit. But I digress. COD 4, very well balanced. I think the weapon variety, obviously there's not a lot of weapons, but the ones that are there are all viable for the most part. They all have a certain feel to them. So I think, there's fun in that. I like the maps. You've got plenty of really good maps. Crash, um, Showdown. What's the one? It's annoying though. Crossfire is one I really like, and there's another one that's actually slipping my mind now. I quite like Wet Work. Obviously, everyone has mixed feelings about Shipment. Let's not talk about Shipment, but what's it called? The one that begins with V. This is a fucking great video. Vacant. That's it. You can tell I've done my research. Vacant was a very good map. So, good maps, good weapons, well balanced. I think the reason I've only got it in good and not higher is, and whilst I appreciate it was groundbreaking at the time, I think the way that it's aged, and particularly with what's come after is it's very minimal. And whilst I appreciate that, that probably contributes somewhat to the balance. It wears thin after a while. It kind of has a bit of that Modern Warfare problem where, again, you're quite slow as a character. I think it promotes a slower pace of play than what I prefer. I think it's definitely better than Modern Warfare in that sense. Like, you can still rush and use map navigation to get in good positions and to play in that way. But it was kind of like a Heglitch's paradise, and very much that PowerPoint holding kind of dynamic, which doesn't really vibe that well for me. I'd say, like I said, the fact that you're quite limited in the different setups that you can have. Certain perks just aren't really that viable compared to others. There's not a lot of different attachments. You're obviously limited to 3 kill streaks. Equipment isn't really that varied. I would say a lot of the replayability kind of, again, in 2007, we're talking, completely different time. But now, and just looking at how it's aged, I just say it gets old a bit quick. So that's why I've got it in the good. Another game that definitely got old quick for us was Modern Warfare 3. Now, there was a fun factor to this game, and I think there was good weapon variety. I like some of the maps. Again, I can remember these maps like Dome and Hard Hat, Mission, Bootleg. I definitely have fond memories of that. I like the addition of the Moab. I like the addition of the different strike packages. I remember at the time thinking like, what the fuck is this support package? So even if somebody dies, they can still earn a stealth bomb or an EMP, which I must admit, even now, I think was probably a mistake. I think they probably should have just gone up to like an advanced UAV and then just stopped there. Um, but I like the way that you could manage the different streaks. And I'm trying to remember if you could attach the different streaks to different classes. I think you might have done on that game. So there were certain things that they brought in that were good. And like I said, there was a certain fun factor and a certain, there's a good flow to that game. It was very rare that you were running around just unable to find anyone. Sometimes you felt a little overwhelmed, but I'd much rather that than those games where it's like everyone's just spotting up. I think the main thing that hurt this game, the spawns were absolutely abysmal, and particularly in domination. I mean, this was the game, and another thing that actually Modern Warfare 3 probably doesn't get enough credit for is they introduced kill confirmed, which to this day one of my favorite game modes. But it kind of forced us all into becoming kill confirmed players because Dom was just impossible. I mean, Rob posted that 100 kill game on Dome where we lost, and it kind of goes under the radar. I mean, I went 36-14 with a decent score in that game, and I was doing, me, I was doing my absolute damnedest to win, and we just couldn't because of how they would just keep spawning on flags. Um, so I think that was a real issue in that game, and I think the other thing that kind of hurt it. I mean, death streaks were mental, particularly after fucking Robert Bowling tells us all there's no more last stand, but then he's replaced it with Dead Man's Hand, which is 10 times worse. Um, I mean, Juiced was quite funny, especially when we were playing in private games and going with the juice jugs. But again, it's that sort of similar thing that I was talking about in Advanced Warfare, where someone can have juiced and fucking get across the map in a couple of seconds, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing there? So that didn't really work. I get that they wanted to even out the dynamics, but I didn't like that. I didn't like the way that some of the guns required certain like I thought that I think they were weapon variants, what they called them. So you remember you had things like kick and focus and range and stuff that you could put on different weapons. I felt like focus was kind of essential for certain classes, and then if you're using a shotgun, you kind of need to have damage or range. Um, yeah, there were certain things that I felt that maybe could have fine tuned a little bit better, but ultimately it was the spawns. And the other thing, lastly, just about Modern Warfare 3 that I think you know, frustrated the living hell out of us. There was some sort of inconsistency in terms of the gunfights, and it's always a staple of any COD game. Those deaths where you land the first bullets and then get melted. Uh, or those games where it feels like it takes you 10 bullets to down anyone and you're just insta killed by everything. But that was particularly prevalent on Modern Warfare 3. And yeah, to this day, I don't really know exactly why. I remember lag compensation was a really big deal at the time, and lots of videos being made about lag compensation and what is it and how's it affecting your game and all of that. But I don't know. I don't really. It doesn't keep me up at night thinking about it. But there was something weird about the way that game played and the consistency, which particularly when, and we'll obviously talk about its predecessor in a moment. Where the connection and the gunfights were pristine. This game, it was just something a bit off with it. But overall, I'll put it in good. I think it was I said I had that fun factor. We definitely had a lot of fun in the party games, and you could go off and you'd get a Moab specialist strike package, was really fun. So yeah, I put it in good. All right, next one, Black Ops 3. It's obviously the game I'm playing right now, so I think freshest in my mind. Maybe one of the games I'm better qualified to speak on. It's all right. I was trying to think beforehand, like what the goods and bads, pros and cons, positives, negatives, um, what they were, and it was just difficult really to think of anything either way. Like the maps are decent. It's not like there's any maps that I go, oh, I'm really excited for this one, but there's none that I completely fucking dread either. The guns are all right. I mean, again, mostly I think they're pretty well balanced, and they do have slightly different feels. Maybe not as much as other games, but they're not as similar as other games as well. I think the spawns are quite consistent. I've noticed on Dom sometimes it will continue to spawn them, and you're trying to cap the third flag, and it will just spawn them on it relentlessly. But that's also led to some really fun moments. So I can't really speak on that. I don't really like the advanced movement, but I think that's more just an advanced movement thing for me. It doesn't really suit how I think and play COD. I just don't really think it has a place. But especially when you compare it to the other advanced movement games, I mean, this is easily the best in terms of the way they kind of limit it and don't let it get too insane. So it's the most balanced advanced movement game that there is. The time to kill is very fast, and that can be a blessing and a curse, I guess. I don't like the addition of specialists. Again, I think specialists have no place in a Call of Duty game. But again, it's definitely not as intense as Black Ops 4 was in that regard. But I just think on the whole, this game's just not that fun. It's playable, and maybe that's where it should be. Maybe I'm being too generous here. I've had moments on it, and there is a certain feel to it that I like, and it doesn't necessarily drive me insane. I rarely come away from games. I'm more likely to come away from a game thinking that was a bit slow and kind of meh, and maybe I've gone like 18 and 10 or something like that in 10 minutes, and it's just. But I'm more likely to feel that than to feel like, oh, that was bullshit. There's nothing I could do there. I mean, this is a game where, if you're on a team that's murking the other team, you're going to keep them fucking down, and vice versa. If you join a game and it's like 160 to 80, and there's raps and haters and warships up and stuff, like, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do. Um, but I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing either. I mean, I'll talk a bit more about that when we get on to the later games. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's all right. It's a brilliant analysis here, but yeah, it's all right. One other thing I would say is there does seem to be a lot of emphasis on DLC, and I don't. Maybe it's because I'm still kind of learning the game. But I don't really know how I unlock the DLC because I haven't. I just get like camos and like little trinkets and shit from the black market. And there seems to be, I mean, there's so many assault rifles and subs that people are running around with that I just don't have access to. Like, I mean, I say maybe like 10, 15 guns, uh, which kind of sucks. And they all seem to be really good as well. Like, every time I pick one up, I'm like, oh, this is nice. So it'd probably be a bit nicer if there was less dependence on the DLC weapons, and there was more opportunity to earn them. Okay, then. So the last one is well, in the good category, anyways. Black Ops 4. Now, this is a game I played way too much, but I I like it. I know this a lot of people really fucking hated this game, and don't get me wrong. I'll get on to some of the things that was kind of not so good about it in a moment, but I really like the gunplay. I thought the way with the health system, obviously you had increased health, manual healing. Um, there was just something about the way that game felt in terms of the feel of shooting people, getting shot. The gunfights and gunplay was just really really good. Um, Real good variety of weapons, all with unique attachments. The way that integrated, and you had like the kind of the special weapon variants as well on some of the guns, and the way that all interplayed with the pick 10 system and the wild cards, and it just worked really well. I thought that the maps, there wasn't actually that many maps in this game, but the ones they did have were strong. I thought they had a nice flow to them. Nowhere really to hide. Predictable and reliable spawns and traffic points. Um, yeah, I just really like the way that game played. I mean, the snipers were a bit much. Uh, you can't have everything, I guess. And I think one of the things that really brought it out on this game was the fact that it was 150 health, so it's taking an extra bullet or two to kill with pretty much every other gun, but the snipers are still one hit. So that was a lot, and they made several buffs to the fucking snipers through the life cycle of that game for some reason. So if you were playing against a team of snipers who were good with them, you were going to have a shit time. Just no way around it. But I felt like different game modes were viable. You could have fun in TDM, kill confirmed, domination. What was the one? Was it Control? I think they brought in for that game as well, which was a nice addition. So all of that I thought was really good, and on the whole, I had a really, for the most part, really fun time. This game did frustrate the ever living hell out of me, because there was, even though there was a certain consistency to it, there would also be some games where it just felt like it took so much to kill everyone, and you died really quickly. It had some of that in it, and again, I think it had another problem that with the DLC that Black Ops 3 did, where I liked the amount of kind of new weapons, and I don't think I bought any of the maps, but they had lots of new weapons and things that came in, but those got harder and harder to earn over time. And it got to a point as well where there was an automatic way, like, okay, I get 100 supply drops, I get this gun, and then over the life cycle of the game, they took those away and they made it just a complete, like, what's the word? It's what we always play on Borderlands 3. Fruit machine. Where you're pulling a lever and hoping that you're going to get what you wanted. Admittedly, that did lead to one of the happiest moments in my life when I finally got the SWAT after like months and months of just opening supply cases to no avail, and I finally got the gun I wanted. It did, and maybe that's Vonderhaar's plan. It was just like, look, we make it impossible, so the payoff is that great. Maybe he knows better than I do, but I think it's probably just to get people to pay more money and put more towards Activision shareholders. But the thing with Black Ops 4 that I think turned a lot of people off, definitely, I mean, this is the thing that drove me insane, more than anything else, and it took way, way too long for them to address this, was the specialists. Like, it was insane how just many, like, the abilities, the weapons were so powerful, they were so prevalent that players could, especially if you were a good player, you could earn like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 in one match, and just having that all over the place, and they were stupid, like, you just the fucking dog, or getting I did this to plenty of people, but I respect it's broken, like hacking somebody's attack helicopter and then it starts killing the team that's earned it. Like, all of these things are just fucking ridiculous. The gravity slam, and never mind the fact that these people all look like pirates and bunny rabbits and fucking gingerbread men and all of this like stupid gear. So that, if in some ways, made it even more annoying. Um, and this game was just, again, I think if they'd have just toned down the specialists, toned down the cosmetics, really just kept that focus on like I said, the really strong gunplay, this might have even been in the great tier list. That's how highly I think of this. And I know I'm in the minority, but I really did enjoy Black Ops 4, and I think that's probably demonstrated by how much content it turns out is on my channel. But yeah, that's probably enough time to talk about the good. Let me just do a quick time check. Where am I up to? Oh my god, 28 minutes. Fuck. Oh, I need to get back to work, and it's just actually quite depressing that I could just talk about COD for nearly half an hour without taking a second breath. But we're nearly there. We're nearly there. 3 games to go, I believe. Yeah, 3. So now we move into the grades, and first is Modern Warfare 2. Now, this was the game that got us all in the Mayfield group really hooked into COD. If you go to my channel, Lactate, which is one of the, I think, only original channels from back then that's still there, and all the videos that you can still access and see what we were doing. I don't know if my 45 is still around, but I think Dave and Simon removed all the videos they made at the time. But anyway, I mean, this was a game that will always have a place in my heart for the nostalgia, for the great times we had in private lobbies and public lobbies, playing some competitive. I still think to this day the connection and the gun play was probably unsurpassed. The sounds were fucking awesome. Even things like the hit markers, and I mean, just getting like a filthy pred or AC-130, like just something so satisfying about that. And the way that that all came up, it properly gave you that dopamine rush that COD's all about. And the streaks were just, they just did work on that game. And they were fun, and there was lots of it that was at the time groundbreaking. It felt like a real evolution from COD 4. The pro perks, the new kill streaks, all the different attachments you could have to the different guns, the way that all worked together, and the guns themselves were all really fun. They all felt really unique. Everything was insanely OP, but in a way that actually kind of balanced it all out. And you're always going to have some guns that are better than others, but that was a game that, I mean, I remember, I think, being at Dave's once and using akimbo TMPs, which had like 15 rounds each, and shot at the speed of sound. But you could still, you need to run scavenger, obviously, but you could still run around with that and do all right. I like the maps, really good. In terms of, I think they probably had, because a lot of the tryout games tend to be those 3-lane maps, whilst Infinity Ward sometimes switch up the layout a bit. But what was interesting about Modern Warfare 2 is that all the maps, for the most part, I mean, you still had like Derail and Underpass and a few I could probably forget about. But if I think about Skid Row, Terminal, Scrapyard, Favela, High Rise, Afghan, you've got a real mix of kind of like small 3-lane kind of maps. You've got, Afghan is much more of like a circular map around a central point. Skid Row is a nice mix of kind of in buildings, but also open spaces too. There are some lanes, but you can also kind of take some more outside routes if you want to. And I felt that, this was a game where, even like the DLC was decent, and I don't think we had any guns for that, but I remember some of the DLC maps like Carnival and Salvage and Trailer Park and Strike and Vacant, and I think they brought some COD 4 maps in. Those being quite fun, and this game just had a fun factor. It had a very rewarding and kind of payoff in terms of, as you know earned your streaks, the way the streaks stacked. Obviously, the nuke was a good novelty at the time. Everyone liked getting a nuke, and there was just a fun factor to this game. That really the only criticism I have of this game is noob tubes and Commando Pro, which they never fucking addressed to this day, and I don't really know why, because that was all that this game needed to address. I mean, they took down the fucking picture of, I think, Mohammed in the favela bathroom. Like, that goes straight fucking down. But the most offensive thing in that game, noob tubes and commando, never got addressed, never got discussed. I know that there were things like the javelin glitch and the care package glitch, which were around quite a bit of its like main life cycle. But those never really, you'd run into them and it'd be annoying, and then you just get on. It was just a death that you couldn't avoid. But the Commando Pro and the particular noob tubes was just game breaking. And to this day, it really upsets me that they never fixed that. But hey, guns were awesome, maps were awesome, perks, kill streaks, gameplay, flow. This is definitely a great COD game. And I think you speak to most veteran COD players, they'll have Modern Warfare 2 somewhere in their top 3. All right, Black Ops. Now, this is an interesting one. I played Black Ops. I might have even played Black Ops less than I played Black Ops 4. And maybe even less than I played Modern Warfare 3. I think I probably played it similar to somewhere between how much I played COD 4 and how much I played Modern Warfare 3. This was a game that none of us really liked when it first came out. We were obviously just adjusting for Modern Warfare 2, and it was a very different experience. But this was a game that I think really grew on me over time. And, over time, I really grew to sort of fall in love with the weapons, and there were so many weapons in this game. I think this game probably had more weapons than any COD game. All felt pretty unique. All you had like the FAMAS 74U Galil. There were some OP guns again, like we discussed. It's always going to be there, but for the most part, like if you adjusted your player style correctly and you had your class set up right, all the guns were viable and you could find ways to be successful with all of them. There was something about the way the gunfights worked where I don't think they had like an increased health system or anything like that, but it just wasn't. You just felt like you always had that extra bullet, and I like that dynamic where you could choose to evade a gunfight. Um, but all the same time, if you saw someone and you just shot them in the back and your aim was true, you could just melt them and move on to the next one. It worked well. I thought the kill streaks were well balanced. This obviously again introduced the Blackbird, which was a great addition. And actually, just to go back to Black Ops 4, I'm still torn as to whether or not that game should have had a Blackbird. Again, comments below what you think, but I really liked it in Black Ops 1. I liked that there was a counter to Ghost, even if Ghost was a bit prevalent. And I know if you had Ghost, you were giving up Flat Jacket and Scavenger. But yeah, it probably was still the best perk in the game, and I think that combined with the fact that footsteps were pretty much impossible to hear, it kind of promoted the Ghost Pro FAMAS silencer kind of ninja kind of gameplay, which is a bit gay, but people play like that. What else about Black Ops? I thought the maps were decent. Again, there's a few, like I think Array was like that big dish snow map was kind of shit. But I remember having fun on Villa. I remember having fun on WMD. Jungle was, I suppose, a bit hit or miss. Radiation I enjoyed. I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head, but I just this game was very well balanced. I think there was a real good variety to the game. The other thing this game did awesome, which is crazy to think like 10 years later has still not been surpassed, was the combat record. Like the detail and the way that you could analyze all the different kind of variants and how many kill your personal best, your averages, your preferences, all of these things, and that you could also see everybody else's and go to any given lobby and very easy check players out, compare people, look at leaderboards. That to this day they have not done anywhere near as good a job as they did on Black Ops. So that was another thing, I think for the COD nerds, and it was just a fun thing to do in the middle between rounds and stuff, was just to check your stats and to scout other people. And you had contracts in there as well, which I think kept the game fresh. I was kind of, I was sort of, I don't know, the way that, because if you remember that in that game that you had like econ or points or money that you needed to earn, and you'd earn that money and then you use that money to unlock, perks, attachments, guns, things like that. I'm still not really sure if I like that system. It was all right, but it was there. It was functional. I don't really remember feeling like, oh, I don't have money for anything, and then it was pretty easy to earn money. That was also the game that introduced like party games as well, like officially like Sticks and Stones and Gun Game and things like that. So yeah, overall, I think Black Ops is on the level of Modern Warfare 2. If it was maybe a little bit more fast paced sometimes, if maybe the gun feel of the guns and maybe the sound was on Modern Warfare 2's level, perhaps this is goes up to the top tier. But I think for what it was, particularly at the time, but even how it's aged, I would put Black Ops on that great tier. Now, last but not least, actually last but most, I guess, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. You must know what it is now, just through process of elimination, and anyone who's fucking played COD with me or talked to me about COD over the years will know what my favourite, and opinion, the best all-time game is, and that is Black Ops 2. Now, I'm going to go in reverse here. I know Black Ops 2 isn't perfect. I think something with the camera angles or the inbuilt lag. I remember watching a drifter video, and he was talking about the inbuilt lag in terms of how many frames for all the recent COD games. And Black Ops 2 actually had, by frames, twice as many as, in terms of inbuilt lag, than any of the others. And that is why, you would have a lot of those deaths where you check a corner. I remember the classic one is the graveyard in slums, where you're coming from the fountain, you check your right, your left, nobody's coming, you turn to exit, and then you're shot from the direction you just checked, and you watched the kill cam, and you just looked at the guy, went all right, and then just ran off, and then he just shoots you in the back. But on your screen, you did not see him. Like, that sort of shit happens. I think it also would affect sometimes when guys are coming around corners. It feels like you're dead the second that they come around the corner, but on their screen, they came around the corner and shot you. There were things like that which was not perfect. And in hindsight, I think Scavenger and C4 was probably, and also Scavenger and EMPs were probably a little ridiculous. But this brings me on to what I think was so great about this game, was that virtually everything had a counter. So even if you're getting C4 all the time, you just stick Flat Jacket on and it doesn't work anymore. And if you're getting EMP nonstop, stick on Hardwired and you're fine. Everything had a counter. I mean, even a VSAT, you could run counter UAV or run EMPs and disable that. There was, everything was kind of balanced. I mean, this game even had noob tubes, but they were kind of well balanced in terms of how you could use them. The kill streaks, they did work, especially if you had the right loadout on the right map. Your swarm could go off, your dogs could go off. Obviously, VSATs lead to more VSATs, but you even have things like Hellstorms and Lightning Strikes, Sentries, Guardians, and I think every kill streak for the amount of points it took to earn did the kind of work it should do, and wasn't always necessarily the easiest to take down. But again, it depended on how hard it was to earn. So I thought the score streaks were really good. And actually, if I remember correctly, Black Ops 2 was the first game to implement a score streak system, which I still think is the best way to do it, because it really rewards what you're contributing in the match, and just everything you're doing, and you can obviously tweak how much you reward certain actions, and I just think it works better than the kill streaks or whatever the one they did for Modern Warfare 3, and they might have done for Modern Warfare as well, where you get one point for capturing a flag, for example. Something like score streaks work best. Black Ops 2 also introduced the Pick 10 system, another great addition in my opinion. I think it's interesting that they went back on for Modern Warfare and went to a more traditional setup. And you could maybe argue that there's more balance in that if everybody's got 3 perks, 2 attachments, 1 piece of equipment, etc. But I like that customizability, and especially in this game, it wasn't like you could throw on stock lightweight quick draw onto like the fastest firing SMG in the game and just be this flying super soldier. It balanced you out one way or another. It just did. The guns were all very unique. This was the game when they introduced. I mean, imagine this: they introduced the Peacekeeper for free in this game, which is a really good gun. It had a really nice place in between the assault rifles and SMGs. This was one of the few games where I felt SMGs were probably the most viable weapon class. Pretty much everything else it's assault rifles. So I like that, but you could also whip out the QBB and some of the LMGs and have a good time. The shotguns were fun. Obviously Cantor loved the Remington. Even I think had some fun with the M16. There was another burst fire, was it like the SG-12 or something? You had the slug one, was it the KSG? Like, it was fun. And then you had the party game modes which worked, and the other thing that I haven't even touched on yet, although I think again that the kind of competitive element that was clear in this game and really helped it feel balanced and kind of work well, league play, to this day, that hasn't been replicated at anywhere near the same level in terms of the competitive, having a clear class rank system that you can level up in, having obviously certain parts just restricted, really promoting that kind of team and sort of competitive element. I just thought it was really fun. So you had a lot of real good variety in this game. The zombies, I remember we had a lot of fun on the zombies. I'm struggling to remember some of the maps. I mean, I remember you had that big skyscraper one. I remember there was the one you had to build the plane. You had Call of the Dead was Black Ops 1, I think, actually. But there was another. I remember. I just remember having fun. And this was again. This is obviously fucking goes without saying. And if you've been listening this far away, where are we now? Like fucking 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Jesus. All right, I'm gonna wrap up. But this was also the game that I just played best on. I had the most personal success on. I think I finished this game with like a 2.7 something KD. I think I was near 50 nuclears. I think I don't think I ever got a kill chain, but I think I got everything but. Just a real fun game. Very fun. It had that competitive element. I felt in any given game, if I could read what the other team were doing, tune my strategy accordingly, get my class set up right, and you could have lots of different classes, each with slightly different counters. It was just so well balanced, and I felt that if I kind of played back in the right way, I could win any game. And I never felt it was rare to feel in that game like I'm completely powerless. There's nothing I can do. Like, I always felt like I could fight my way out of a spawn trap like I couldn't in other games. But at the same time, I could hold people in if I was playing that well. I felt like there was real back and forth in terms of gun dynamics. There was a push and pull element in terms of the way that matches played. Such variety, like I said, in terms of party games, league play, zombies, public matches. This was just the best game, in my opinion. But I've given a lot of my opinion. I can't believe this video is as long as it fucking is. I'm genuinely speechless about that. I guess whilst I've got you, thanks for watching. Please do check out some of my other recent, well, maybe not my really recent live comms. I mean, I think they're entertaining. It's just me and Jack running around on Black Ops 3. But I think some of the Black Ops 4 comms with Rob and with Alex as well, actually. I think the gameplay is pretty good. I think it's pretty exciting. I think those videos are actually, some of them anyway, are kind of entertaining. So by all means, please do check those out. And, if you do want to play COD and just get involved, and obviously we're not taking it that seriously anymore, or not taking it seriously at all. It's just been a nice way just to hang out and shoot shit and just kind of have I don't know, just something I would say something to do. Sounds kind of sad, but it's just been a bit of fun, and I think it's it was something that connects us all at a time, and um, obviously it's clearly something I've still got strong feelings about. I'll be interested to know if any of you guys could talk about COD for this long. Maybe this is why Dave suggested that I do this video, because I'm the only one sad enough to actually do it and still have all of these thoughts rattling around my head. But anyway, I'm just rambling now. But what I'm basically saying is thanks for watching. Please check out some of the other videos, and if anyone wants to play, hey, let's make some magic happen. So with that, I'm out of here. Thank you.